Hi everyone, I'm Vone Kevitz, knit and crochet designer for one-of-a-kind makers who dare to be original, and I have an awesome guest for you today, Jessica Torres from Little Lovely Creations. Hi Jessica.
Hi, Vaughn.
So tell everybody who you are.
I'm Jeca, short for Jessica, from the store Little Lovely Creations. I make amigurumi, or crochet, but mainly amigurumis, my passion. I'm learning to knit, so I'm giving that a go. Hopefully, it works out.
Nice, nice. So how long have you been crocheting?
um, what has it been? I want to say probably like 3, 4 years.
3, 4 years?
Yeah.
That's awesome, and you're making all these awesome amigurumis. Guys, if you know how to crochet, you know how hard amigurumi is. Like the directions and the intricate little tiny stitches, you know what I mean, and the curves. And then do you read patterns?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Even crazier reading those patterns, right?
Oh, when I started, I didn't know what I was reading. I was like, "What is this? I don't get it." So I had
It's
to
nuts. It's nuts counting the right holes and making sure you're landing at the right circle, and you're like dealing with like tiny little arms and little legs and
sewing.
uh, sewing
Everyone's least favorite part.
sewing afterwards. Yes. So and you've just recently started knitting?
Well, actually, I how I got started here is that I started knitting just simple knit purl because of my best friend. She
Right.
had We had worked together, and she was knitting a scarf, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Well, I'm knitting." I was like, "How do you do that?" And she taught me, so I knitted a scarf at first. And then I was like, "Oh, this is cool." And then I started seeing amigurumis up online, and I was like, "What is that? Like, how do you do that?" And I learned it was crochet, a whole nother technique. So I left the knitting and I learned crochet to make amigurumis, and I forgot all about knitting. So I had to like teach myself all over again.
Oh, that's
Started with
awesome.
knitting, which is
Right.
crazy.
And so that's how you started your knit and crochet.
Yes.
How did you so how did you get your shop going? Where did that
Well, that's all through also Instagram, because I started my page, and then I started reading all this Etsy. So I'm like, okay, well, actually, Etsy came up first because I bought my first pattern,
Mhm.
Portal, Pokemon, and
That's right. I do
yeah,
remember you.
yeah, I
Yeah.
gave it a little go, and that's when I liked this. I'm like, oh, maybe I should open my shop, but later in time when I was already used to the whole process of crocheting, but then I closed it because I wasn't being so active, and I just reopened last year. Last year, I believe, I reopened my shop, and
Yes.
I want to focus on that this year actually because I just suck at all of that, making time for it, but I will. I have to this year.
Yes, yes. So this is Jeca's Etsy year.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. That is so exciting. Jeca and I met years ago on the Dare to Be Original Facebook group. So were you just starting to learn how to knit and crochet then?
Um, Already crocheting. Knitting was still just like
Just the
I
so
like every now and then, but I'm picking it up more now.
because I remember you entering in the thing, and I remember you talking about an amigurumi pattern that you found on Etsy. So you were very new then. And then you open your shop right along with the Dare to Be Original Facebook group?
Reopening it,
Yeah.
yeah, because I had opened it in 2015, my first time when I opened. So that's when I posted, I think, my first pattern, the
Yes.
penguin.
Is that the one that I got?
I think so. Was
I
it?
think I did
Yeah,
support
yeah,
your
yeah.
pattern.
But I'm like,
Yes.
I can't recall the year on it, to be honest, if it was in that year or later on when we joined the Facebook.
Mhm.
So I'm like, my memory's a little
Jacka, that's
off.
so awesome. So you hadn't been crocheting very long before and learning to do the amigurumi before you just did that pattern and put it right up on the Etsy shop. I
Yeah.
love that. I applaud that because we have a tendency as creatives to live in fear of putting our stuff out there.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you had just done it and then created your own pattern and just put it out there. Like, you know what I mean? Like progress, not perfection. Just progress is progress, you know?
So I'm like, I'm very happy with that pattern. I'm like, I could probably perfect it, but I'm like, I'm happy with it. But I'm
No,
working on writing more patterns because
that's
it's hard this one.
awesome. So your creations now, if you guys follow, Jeca's links are below to her Etsy shop and to her Instagram, but check out her Instagram. You'll see all the amazing creations that she does. So you've read a lot of patterns, and are any of those in there your own creations without you doing patterns yet?
Most of them are patterns that
Mhm.
are searches or Pinterest.
Right.
But I could probably say very few, honestly, are mine. I was working on a Pikachu Libre from this video game, Pokemon, and
Mm-hmm.
I never came around to finishing it. But I did make that one up. I'm trying to perfect it because it's still kind of weird to me.
Yes.
Working progress.
Seriously, for anybody that already, like, I do simple patterns for scarves and just a couple of stitches, and even that takes like time to just making sure the technical abbreviations are right and the stitches and all that stuff is right. I can only imagine the overwhelming of the technicalities when it comes to writing an amigurumi pattern.
A lot.
And lots of testing and trial and error and testing and seeing if your words repeat them correctly and
Yeah.
everything. And
Make
that's
sure
just
everything
with
perfect.
you making it. Yep. That's just with you. You haven't even like gotten to the stages of other people reading your pattern and testing it.
No. Hopefully next week.
That's
Working
awesome.
on a unicorn pattern right now. So I'm gonna be looking for testers. So let's see how
That
that
is
goes.
amazing. So by the time this airs, your unicorn pattern should already be up and running. And when that happens, just send me the link if it goes live or something, and I will add it into the description of
Cool.
this interview. So you know what I mean. You know how to get a hold of me. So as
Yeah.
soon as you get that pattern up, we could add that unicorn pattern link right into this uh, in this description. So what is your big why for pursuing this solopreneur lifestyle?
Let's see. I actually made notes because I'm nervous.
Nice notes.
um, well, I fell in love with what I do. Mainly amigurumis. I'm like, I think that it's amazing what we could create with our own hands. So I was like, I love it. So whenever I have the time, I'm like, I just crochet away,
That's
you know. And
awesome.
I
Yeah.
think it's great. I'm like, even other people's work, everybody's work is so different. So I'm like, it's I love it. I love it.
Everybody's work is so different. It's so funny because we're all each unique and we all have like our own ways of interpreting our creations. You know what I mean? Even if you have two people doing the exact same thing, following the exact same patterns, using the exact same yarns, you wouldn't believe the different, you know what I mean, outcome
Yeah.
that can come out of it. It really is amazing, let alone not even using the same yarns. And now we're not even using the same colors. We're not even counting the same stitches. We haven't used the same hooks. Like, you know what I mean? Just the interpretation. And then just our tension alone. Even for us to repeat our own work is unique. It's always different, right?
Yeah.
Always different. I was gonna say, like, even like as you follow the same pattern and you're doing the same stuff, how many creations do you end up making that look identical?
None.
None, right? None. Absolutely none. I know it's beautiful. I love handmade. I love the world of handmade. And so what is your making process?
Well, since I work full time, I just
Hmm.
crochet a few hours a day, and just go from there. Sometimes I don't even crochet any. A few days I'm so tired. I'm just like tomorrow. I'm like it's just random, but I try to crochet at least an hour or two before going to sleep.
Oh, that's awesome. I used to be like that. I need to get back to that.
And that's the only time I have. Like I only have one day off, so it's like, and that day off, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to do anything. but I try.
There was a time where I would like just sitting down and watching TV because my husband and I just like at the end of the night we wind down and watch a couple of our favorite shows. It was just and I would always have something in my hand, and even now I'm just like even too tired to put something in my hand. And I'm like, what I was like, I need that same drive that I used to have. You know what I mean? Because I do miss that.
It's fun, but then you got to give it a break.
Yeah, we do. Well, I was gonna say, wait a minute. So if I'm following amigurumi patterns, there's no way I'm watching TV.
It's hard because I've done that, and you just mess up, and you either skip a stitch or make more, and it's not a great idea.
Yeah, it's not like that's why I'm like that takes some concentration to do that.
Yeah, that's something. If it's knitting, just simple knit or something, I think it's great. The hand's already used to the movement, so you can watch TV and
yeah.
Knit. But with amigurumi, I'm like, no, I can't. I just listen. I listen to the show. And I'm like, okay, they're like, you're not even watching. I'm like, but I'm listening.
I know. Yep. So do you have different projects going on at the same time?
Or? Always.
So you're
this
like
is inspiration. I feel for me. Sometimes like I get started on one, and then I'm just like, oh, I don't feel like doing that today, and I start a new one, and then I go back to the first one, or I start another one. Like right now, I have probably like 3-5 projects that are just not unfinished, just waiting to be finished. And I was like, I'll get to it.
So that's another thing about creatives. Don't we all have startitis? When every pattern gets just a little tough, then you're like, you know what? I think it's time to start a new project.
Right?
Because it's like a newlywed stage where we're like, you know what I mean? This is brand new. It's going to be beautiful. And about quarter of the way through, you're like, like it's never going to be over. Let me just do something else. So how hard is it for you? Because when I start a lace pattern, and if I'm not like persistent enough to finish that lace pattern, we could pretty much bank that I will not finish that. I will not get back to that. You know what I mean? Because to get my mind back into that lace, it takes a lot. How are you going back to an amigurumi project? Like back and forth? Like, do you actually go back?
Well, for those, yes.
I
feel like I have to finish all the amigurumis I get started. But with other projects, like there's a blanket that I wanted to do of a Yoshi egg. So it's like granny squares. It's never been completed. It's just sitting in my closet, just waiting. It's been years that it's there, and I'm just sad when I see it. I was like, one day I'll finish it, but I just leave it. But amigurumis, I always tend to finish.
You always finish, so you always you get through the hard part, and you just focus and buckle down, and because an arm and a leg, and you just like you got to put a face on it and let's attach it.
Yeah. But I feel like with other stuff like blankets, or even since I want to learn to make crochet and knit clothing, those are just in a wait. I have also a knitted cardigan that's unfinished, so it's just like I feel like everything that's blanket clothes, it's just gonna sit for a while.
That's so funny because you know what? I do have like a lot of half scarves, but I do make a lot of scarves. Yeah. And I have a couple of sweaters that I started, but there is not one doll that didn't get finished.
Right?
When I was making dolls, every single doll got done.
You have to.
Like there is no random arm or leg laying around that didn't have a head and hair attached to it. That is kind of funny. So maybe that's where like the open-ended work can kind of just stay open-ended, and then but the amigurumis, like every single doll that I made did get finished.
Right.
Before I was all done with retiring on making dolls. That's so cool.
It's funny because it's more tiring, but we have to.
It is. Yeah. Well, maybe because it is so small that if you really buckle down, it's different to get 30 stitches done than 212.
Yeah, that's
right?
True.
Which is the blanket, You're like, and then so amigurumi, even though it's technical, there's like five here, 5 there, and then you're done with arm. 5 here, 5 there, you're done with the leg, right?
Yeah.
And then but your blanket is how many crochet squares?
That's true. A lot. I have a lot. The funny part is that I have a lot of pieces already done. like color-wise. Like I have a lot of greens, a lot of whites, blacks, and I just need a few more, and then just sewing them. But just sewing the squares is what gets me like, oh, I don't think I want to do that today.
Yes, yes, yes. I know what you mean. That's why whenever I do a granny square, I always try to find a pattern that lets me work off of it as I build. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
there are a lot of granny square patterns that let you build because I can't stand sewing. Sewing together is like weaving in ends, and you know how I hate weaving in ends.
that was
Like I
me.
will do everything in my power to crochet over the ends before I weave in an end.
And that's what I think my blanket got started. I was like doing a slip stitch or a single crochet through the border. And
Hmm.
then I was like, you'll be able to toe the wrong and right side. So I'm like, maybe it's not a good idea. Maybe I should sew it in so it could be flat. And that's why
Right.
I kind of like left it there because
And
I
then
was
it just,
like, yeah. So I'm like,
and
yeah,
then,
that's just, it's a lot.
right, right. So, do you have any? So, you've been doing this for 4 or 5 years. Do you have any tips for newbie makers?
Well, I get, yeah, well, crochet wise, amigurumis, I'm like, yeah, it's hard to start with. I'm like, but the outcome of practice is it's very rewarding, you know. Um,
Yes.
let's see. I think I have them here. I'll show you. I'll show you.
Look at all of our creations back there. You can see them
Yes.
all.
So this is my first. I don't know if you guys can see him.
Yeah.
My
Oh.
first Squirtle. So he looked. I didn't have safety eyes, so he's a little derpy. And I was like, this is my very 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 first, and this is my latest.
Look at how. Oh my gosh.
There are two different patterns, but I just mean like the work
You
is
need flip
so
flip that
different.
turtle shell in the background. Look at how intricate that is.
So it's like if you really really want to do this, like it takes a lot of time and practice, but it's great,
That
you
is
know. And then you
so
bring happiness to other people. Other people admire and love your work, and that's what brings me joy. The fact that other people could appreciate what I make, and all the time that goes into it. But practice, just practice. You need help. Reach out to people that already do it. Like I would love to help. So if anybody has questions, I could help. Reach out to me, ask me questions. I could give you little tips. But what I do say is, if you make, let's say you want to make like 5, 6 of these, do all the pieces at one time. It's so much easier.
yes.
Do all the like head parts and then do all the tail parts, and like it goes by quick instead of making one whole piece and then making another. Because I used to do that and it takes so much more time. So have all your pieces already done. Do the sewing all at the end.
Je- Jeca, that is an awesome tip. That is such an awesome tip because when I was making dolls, I would make a bunch of arms and then I would make a bunch of legs at the same time. You know what I mean? And then when you're done, like you can assemble it faster, like a couple of bodies while you're doing the bodies because you have fresh in your head what
Yeah.
the body part is. You know what I mean? As
Like
opposed
the
to
pattern, right? You
yeah,
just
as
like
opposed to
already
doing
have
one
it.
arm, one leg, you know what I mean? And then going to another arm and another leg and then the body, like do 5 bodies at the same time in one night. You know what I mean? Like that is so smart. That's a really great tip because you have the same stitches. I hate it like because if you don't do it that way, you're second guessing a
You're
lot.
constantly going, like I will be going back and forth to the pattern. I'm like, no, I thought it was this, and I feel like
Yeah.
if you do the same part, like it's already like in your memory for the
Hmm.
moment. So it's like you just get it done much faster. And I was like,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah.
If I would have known in the
Streamlining
very
that.
beginning.
Awesome. That's a great tip. That's a great tip. Yeah. Streamlining that those different activities is really smart. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
I'm like, and
that's
they shouldn't be afraid, to try something different, new. But
no.
don't feel that your work needs to be the same as everybody else's. Like, put your little pizzazz in it, make it your own, and people will love it. That's it.
Yes, yes. Great. Do you have any habits and rituals that you do daily?
No, honestly, no. This is like whatever comes.
Your
So it's
day
like,
just runs, your days just
yeah,
runs as whatever?
yeah. Honestly, I'm like, I feel like I need to be more organized. I'm just very forgetful. I'm like, that's why I just got like I got a planner, and I'm like, I need to start planning everything to be more organized because my time just goes by quickly. And I just saw your video about us saying that we never have enough time for anything. And I was like, oh my God, that is so true. It's not that we don't have it. It's just, we just make other things our priority. And then we're like, oh, well, my day went by and I just didn't have time. No, like, it makes a lot of sense. And I'm like, you know what? That's what I need to start doing. Start
Jeca,
tossing out the things that I don't need to do.
tell me about it. I spent years and decades punishing myself, or like constantly complaining over the same things about I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time. And then one day it clicked on me, and I think it was even my husband that said it's not, you don't have time because it's not your priority. And that's when it really hit me. I'm like, because it's funny how we can have 5 hours to create
Yes.
crochet, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
funny how we have 5 hours to work on our craft and not even know that it's dinner time, never even once looked up and saw that sunlight turn into midnight. You know what I mean? It's funny how like 11 o'clock at midnight turns into 3 a.m. and it's a school night, it's a work night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's funny how we have time for that.
I know, but not everything else.
But everything else that we deemed as important or that we claim as important, and then instead of saying like, and we always complaining about not having time, and I was like, well, that was my one thing, because I would be like, oh, I to be fit and healthy, I want to get in shape, but I never have time to work out. I never have time to work out. I never have time to work out. Well, and then one day, like as I just realized, I'm like, you know what? I have time to do other things, but I don't make time to work out. So it clearly was not my priority. You know what I mean? So I either have to put it as a priority, or accept that it is not my priority and move on with the things that I want. You know what I mean? Because once I say that, then I realize, I'm like, so every time I want to complain that I don't have time, I always catch myself and I basically just have to swallow the hard pill and go, you know what? It's not my priority right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because once you change that, because that takes ownership in what you do, but at the same time, if it becomes it, then it does move up in your priority list. You know what I mean? Instead of just saying you don't have time. So I'm glad that you found that video helpful. If you guys, I'm not sure if it's going to release before or after your interview here. So either way, they can reference back to it. They'll find it. It'll come. and if you guys aren't, I started a weekly newsletter. So if in the description below, make sure you sign up for that newsletter, because this way you won't miss any of those videos.
I know. I watch them. I love them. I was like, why couldn't I think of this earlier? Why didn't it make sense? And I was like, it's great. I'm always telling people, I'm like, oh, you really should check it out. Vone is like very clear with everything she says, and everything makes sense. And I'm just like, it's great. I love your videos.
And it's funny because everything, like, so I read a lot of like self. Here's actually, you know what? We'll finish off with the last one. How do you invest in yourself?
Well, honestly, for what I do, I did buy let me see. I bought a course on Crafty, and it's called Design Your Own Monster by Stacy Truck. And she pretty much is giving you tips on how to create your own stuff. And I guess that kind of helped me with my penguins. It's like you just make a little drawing, simple, just like the shapes that you want to create, and you just crochet away. And I was like, you know what, that's not bad. It's not a bad idea. And I thought it was a really good video. So I'm like, that's probably the only thing I actually invested in. Everything else, YouTube. It's great to learn stuff.
So you watch a lot of YouTube. Yeah.
That's where I learned, actually. Like, I didn't know what SC meant. I don't know what DC meant. Increase, decrease. I didn't know any of that. And so I will always have to go to YouTube and be like, what does this mean? And all these videos will come out, and that's how I learned how to make amigurumi, because of YouTube. And I was like, knitting, my best friend. Crochet, I'm like, YouTube.
That's awesome. Yes, that's when I ask that question, a lot of people like to think the word invest means like money wise, and sometimes it does mean that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just how do you like basically fill your well. You know what I mean? Because we can't output what we don't put input. So you know what I mean? You can't give what you don't have. And so that's basically what I want to like instill on makers is that is different ways of investing in themselves. And that's basically like reading and learning. And YouTube is a great way to learn. You know,
Yeah, if you're a visual learner, I'm like, YouTube is really
yes,
great.
yes. So that was another one of the things that I do. I believe it or not, I actually don't YouTube enough. My husband YouTubes everything. I
Yeah.
don't YouTube enough because I forget that YouTube is a form of education.
Yeah. No,
There'll
don't
always
worry. I'm with you there. It's just like I only go for like little things I need to do, and everything else I feel like, oh, I don't know where to look for it, or I don't know what to do.
yes.
It's just like,
I feel like I take the longer way in doing things. Like I'm for how I invest in myself is I read a lot of self-improvement books, or I'll take a lot of seminars and webinars. I'll sign up for a bunch of free webinars to see what, you know what I mean? Like I'll put an hour in and listen to something, you know what I mean, that they'll teach. So those are the few ways that I do invest in myself is I take a bunch of classes, you know, different classes. And that's how I learn these little tidbits that I share with you guys, because I feel like at least I don't follow a lot of people. So like a lot of makers and creators, because um, I have a tendency to, it's funny, I follow other people, like the people that I actually learn from are not makers. Yeah.
yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? And it's and I have a tendency to follow that way. So that's why when I learn different things and educate myself, I like to share it with people. Not because I'm better than anybody or that I learned it faster, or no, whatever I'm sharing with you guys, I just learned it and I'm sharing it, and I'm
there it
in,
is.
I'm implementing it, you know what I mean, as I'm sharing it so that we can implement it together. I was just saying to one of my friends, emailing me, and I was like, everything that I share with you guys, I'm not ahead of you in the race. I'm running in the race with you, and I'm just getting people to join the race with me.
So we're all learning together.
Yeah, so we're all learning together and running the race together because it's just more fun that way than running by ourselves.
It's great though, because people that do watch your videos, I'm like, we learn it with you, and it's like it's great. It's great.
Yes. And as I reteaching it, I'm like instilling it back in myself and relearning it, because I have to digest and process it and share it and make sure I'm sharing the right thing. So as I'm sharing, I'm instilling it further. So I loved it. Jeca, this was an awesome chat that I had with you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
So much fun. You guys, if you guys want to follow Jeca, she's in the links below. And when she gets that, which pattern are you working on now?
The unicorn.
The unicorn. Let's hold her accountable. Let's see if she gets that unicorn pattern before this releases or after, but be sure to look out for the link in this description, and go follow her on Instagram, because her creations are beautiful, and you want to follow her because then if you're going to make these awesome creations, you can DM her and ask her a whole bunch of questions.
I hope you.
Definitely. I'm a crochet expert, but that takes a lot of thinking. So you better bother Jeca about those questions. those complicated amigurumi. I retired from the doll making world because it was too much thinking involved.
It does take a lot of time.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And I will see you guys. If you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Be sure to message her and tell her how awesome this video was. And leave a comment below if you have any questions for Jeca. I'm sure if she doesn't see it, I will forward it to her and she can answer them.
I'll be checking.
So she'll be checking. See, there you go. So show her some love on this video. All right, guys. If you're not subscribed, be sure to subscribe. And I will see you guys next time. God bless. Bye. Bye, Jeca.
Bye.